Hello there, my dear sleepy listener. Tonight, I've brought you something quietly strange, a question that only grows more mysterious the longer you think about it. Is there a place where time stands still, not just slows down, not just stretches, but truly forgets to move? A place where the clocks close their eyes and the minutes curl up like sleeping cats, where the tick never follows the tock, before you drift away into peaceful slumber. Please take a moment to like this video, leave a gentle comment about your favourite moment of science, and subscribe to keep these bedtime stories coming. And if you're comfortable, tell me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. I'd love to imagine the stars above your sky. Now, dim the lights, get cozy, and let your curiosity float alongside the stars. You're no longer in your room. You've slipped into something softer, a field between seconds, a hush between heartbeats. The blankets feel lighter, the night more tender. You're not walking or running or rushing, you're simply drifting. All around you is space, but not the empty kind. This is the quiet sort where stars hum lullabies and galaxies exhale light older than memory. You drift past a clock, but it's not ticking. Its hands are made of glass, and they don't move. They shimmer like still water kissed by moonlight, and even though nothing is turning, you feel no urgency. In fact, the absence of motion feels gentle, almost right. Time here is not lost, it's resting. And as you float further, wrapped in the silence between things, you begin to wonder, what is time? Really? Is it just numbers we wear on our wrists? Just seconds stacked into minutes, pressed into hours, like leaves into a book? Or is it something softer? The warmth of tea as it cools in your hands, the sigh of wind through an old window, the way a child seems to age in sudden leaps, as if time holds its breath for months, then exhales. Science tells us that time is a dimension much like space, and that we move through it always, whether we notice or not. But what if not everywhere? What if there are places hidden, folded, suspended where time no longer marches? Einstein whispered of such possibilities. His theories say that time bends and stretches like taffy, that speed and gravity can slow it down or nearly stop it, that if you stand at the edge of something very massive, time doesn't tick the way it does here on Earth. Imagine that. Standing still, while the universe rushes past you, you begin to descend gently, like a feather gliding toward a dream. Below you is the ocean, lit by moonlight, gleaming like molten silver. It sways not quickly, not slowly, just eternally. You're pulled to it now, not by gravity, but by the rhythm of something older than time. The ocean listens to the moon, they say, and maybe, just maybe, the sea knows something we've forgotten, that not all things must hurry. That some things, like dreams and tides and you, are allowed to drift. You hover now just above the surface of the sea, your weightless body swaying gently in rhythm with the tides. There is no noise here, only the lull of waves, the deep, eternal hush of something that does not care for seconds or alarms. The moon sits above you, full and knowing, casting a silver path across the water. It doesn't blink. It doesn't move quickly. It simply pulls quietly, faithfully, always. And below, the ocean responds, as it always has. You watch it rise, not suddenly, not dramatically, but like a breath being slowly drawn. Then it falls again, exhaling toward the sand, over and over, in a pulse that no clock can contain. This is the first thing you notice about the sea. It tells time differently, not in ticks or tocks, but in rhythms, in swelling tides and sleepy currents. The moon doesn't shout commands, it doesn't demand punctuality, it whispers, and the ocean listens. Science explains it. Like this, the moon's gravity tugs at Earth, pulling at the oceans like a gentle magnet. It creates bulges of water tides that follow the moon as it drifts above us. But even this explanation feels too rigid, too fast. Because when you sit with the sea long enough, you realize this is not about force, it's about relationship. A quiet love story written in salt and starlight. You drift lower, close enough now that your fingers graze the surface. It's warm here, in the night sea. You feel the slow pulse of the earth, the same pulse that moved when dinosaurs slept, that carried ships before maps, that cradles whales as they dream. Somewhere far below, coral reefs bloom without ever checking the time. Schools of fish swirl like murmured poetry, not rushing to arrive, only dancing to rhythms older than language. And here you are, human and small, yet somehow part of this same breath. It's curious, isn't it? That time feels different depending on where you are or even who you are. To a fly, a few days is a full lifetime. To a sea turtle, a century is just the beginning. Your own heartbeat, slowed by the softness of this moment, reminds you time is not absolute. It is elastic, personal, lived. And on the shores of this moonlit ocean, you begin to suspect something beautiful that maybe, just maybe, time is not a single current. Maybe it's a sea, with eddies and still pools and deep pockets of slowness. Places where the clocks hesitate, where the minutes sigh, where the years stretch their arms and yawn. No one is sure how early humans understood tides. Long before telescopes, before the language of gravity, they noticed the way the sea responded to the moon. Fishermen planned their journeys by it. Sailors sang to it. Poets compared their hearts to it. And now here you are feeling it. A soft pull, a low hum, a sense that something vast and gentle is guiding the water, and perhaps guiding you too. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you forget how old you are. You forget what year it is, what day, what hour. There is only this moon, this sea, this breath, and it is enough. The ocean fades behind you like a dream dissolving into dawn, and now you rise gently into the colder layers of the earth's breath, higher, higher, until the salty air gives way to a crisp hush, thin and pure, as if even the sky has slowed its breathing. Below, the first shapes appear tall, white ridges, jagged and eternal, not sharp like blades, but worn like thoughts that have been kept for too long. Glaciers, rivers of ice that do not rush. You hover above one now, and it glows faintly blue beneath the moonlight. The ice does not gleam like crystal. Instead, it carries a softness, a quiet gravity, like a wise old face that has forgotten how to smile, but remembers everything. Here, time becomes colder, thicker, heavier. You glide down through the windless stillness until your feet barely brush the surface of the glacier. It doesn't react. It does not crack or shift beneath your touch. It simply is. The glacier is not frozen in the way a puddle might be in winter. It is not simply still. It is moving, but so slowly, so imperceptibly, that only centuries can detect its step. You remember what science says: a glacier is not a static thing. It's a slow river, shaped by gravity and snowfall, carving through mountains like an artist carving through marble. But the work is unhurried. It does not aim to finish. It sculpts over ages. Beneath your fingertips, a faint hum vibrates through the ice. It is the sound of weight and memory of snowflakes pressed together over time until they forget how to be soft. Each layer is a season, each crack a whisper from a year when the clouds wept more than usual. Some glaciers hold records of climates long forgotten, trapped in their cores like dreams sealed in glass. If you could ask the glacier a question, it would take a lifetime to reply, because glaciers do not speak in sentences, they speak in silences, in absence, in the slow shifting of impossible weight. You walk now across its surface, leaving no footprints. Your presence here is as light as a sigh. In the far distance, peaks rise, old ones, the kind with names no one remembers. They've watched glaciers come and go, watched time stretch and shrink like breath in cold air. Every few minutes, or maybe it's every few hours. Here, it's impossible to know. A distant crack echoes through the valley, a deep groaning sound, as if the mountain is remembering something heavy. Glaciers break sometimes, they shed, they carve, but even in those sudden gestures time moves slowly. The piece that falls may have been in the making for 1,000 years, a fracture that began with one snowflake landing just slightly wrong. You think of people, of how we measure our days in appointments and alarms, and yet here, all of that seems absurd. You could stay for 100 years and never see this glacier change, and still it would be changing. There's something comforting in that not everything must happen quickly to matter, that slow things are still alive. The air here has a scent dry and clear, like memory without emotion. You take a breath, and it feels like inhaling something ancient. And then you see it just beneath the translucent layers, a tiny dark shape, perhaps the wing of an insect, or a leaf blown too far, perfectly preserved, timeless, somewhere, deep in the core. There may be pollen from a flower that bloomed when mammoths still walked, trapped not in amber but in cold, and it has not changed, it has not aged, it has simply waited. Scientists have drilled into glaciers, extracting cores that stretch back hundreds of thousands of years. Each one is a diary of air, tiny bubbles from forgotten atmospheres, frozen in place. We read them like pages, decoding the breath of an ancient sky. But not all questions have answers. Some ice forms patterns, beautiful ones that no one has fully explained. Spirals, cracks, blue veins like rivers beneath rivers. Why does glacier ice glow that way, when ordinary ice does not? No one is quite sure. Some say it's the weight, some say it's the way light refracts through the compressed air bubbles. But the truth is softer than certainty. The truth is we don't know, not entirely. And isn't that lovely to stand in the middle of something enormous and ancient and admit we still don't fully understand it? You place your hand against the ice. It is cold, of course, but not cruel. It is the cold of peace, of stillness, of patience. Here, time is a feather trapped in snow, not dead, not forgotten, only resting. You sit, and the glacier holds you without effort. Your thoughts begin to slow. You forget your name, your age, your plans. All that's left is this: the windless quiet, the soft blue glow, the gentle sense that you are smaller than a single layer in a snowflake's dream. And then you hear something, not from above, not from the mountains, but from below. a soft drip, a hollow sound, as if the glacier has a heart and it's melting slowly. It reminds you that even this stillness is not forever. Glaciers, too, are vanishing faster now than they should. Warming, retreating, dying, but that is not tonight's story. Tonight, the glacier still lives. Tonight, it dreams in slow motion, and you are invited to dream with it. Tonight, time does not move in straight lines or measured beats. It pools, it circles, it sleeps, and so do you. You lean into the ice now, letting your body mould gently to its uneven surface. There's no urgency in you, no tension, just breath slow and rhythmic, syncing with the glacier's own invisible tempo. A snowflake lands nearby. It does not rush to melt. It simply rests there, a delicate star of frost, as if considering whether to stay solid or to join the slow trickle deep beneath your feet. You wonder, what does a snowflake dream of? Perhaps of falling, perhaps of being held, perhaps of one day becoming something far greater than itself, a flake among billions, merging into weight, into pressure, into memory, because that is how a glacier begins, not with force, but with accumulation. One snowflake at a time, layer upon layer, pressed by the quiet hand of time until air is squeezed out, until softness becomes strength, until the ephemeral becomes eternal. You begin to notice the textures around you, not just the vastness, but the intimacy, the feathered ridges where snow has caught the wind and frozen into ripples, the tiny crystals that sparkle in starlight, each one a silent cathedral of angles. There's an art here, a geometry of stillness. No painter, no architect, no machine could design something so precise, so quiet, so patient. And yet, the glacier makes it without effort, without even trying. You rise again, floating now over a crevasse, a split in the glacier's surface, where light plunges into blue shadow. It is not frightening, it is beautiful. A frozen canyon, carved not by haste but by pressure, temperature, and inevitability. And below, deeper still, are rivers. Yes, inside the glacier water flows are very slowly and are hidden from the world. These subglacial rivers carry ancient meltwater through tunnels of ice, reshaping the landscape in secret. It's strange, isn't it, that within the slowest thing, something moves. Some of these rivers have carved entire valleys, not with roars or crashes, but with a steady persistence of softness against strength, like love, like memory, like you. The deeper you go, not physically, but inward, in thought, the more you realize that the glacier is not merely ice. It is history, a record, a witness, and like all good witnesses, it does not speak quickly, it does not exaggerate. It holds its silence and waits for someone willing to listen slowly. You think of the glaciers on Mars, on Pluto, in the shadowed craters of the moon, frozen in place for millions, maybe billions of years, untouched, undisturbed, their stories unread, and suddenly, Earth feels lucky to have glaciers that still move, still melt, still groan and whisper in the high mountains. You hover near the edge of a sheer face now, where a glacier kisses the sea. These are the tidewater glaciers, where ice becomes ocean. It's a meeting of worlds, solid and liquid, old and new. You watch as a piece breaks off, not loudly, but softly, as if letting go of a long-held thought. The chunk falls into the water with a slow-motion splash, birthing ripples that expand and shimmer. This is calving not like cattle, but like rebirth. The glacier is not dying, It is giving, and in giving, it changes. The iceberg that drifts away will carry that glacier's memory. It will float, melt, nourish, and perhaps one day its water will become cloud, and then snow, and then glacier once more. There are cycles too vast for calendars. You float back, further from the edge, deeper into the quiet. You find a hollow where snow has gathered into a pillow of silence. You lie down again, and above you, the aurora. It arrives without warning, pale green, soft pink curling and flickering like thought across the sky. It's the sun, reaching gently into this frozen place, its light filtered by Earth's magnetic field and transformed into colour. No one can predict exactly when the aurora will come. No one fully understands every flicker, every twist. Even science, for all its tools and charts, admits it's still a little bit magic. You lie there for a long time. You imagine the glacier beneath you miles deep, stretching back in time, and the stars above you, reaching even further. In between is you, small, soft, brief, but present. Somewhere, a snowflake has just landed. Somewhere else, an iceberg has just melted. Somewhere else, an old glacier has shifted a single inch after 10,000 years. Time is not one rhythm, it is a choir. And in this frozen place, one voice sings very, very slowly. You exhale, and time exhales with you. You feel it before you see it. A change in the air, or rather, in the water. Because now, you're beneath the surface again, far from the frozen highlands. The cold has softened into a warm, weightless hush. You're not falling, you're floating. The sea here is deep and calm, like velvet. Light bends around you in delicate beams, filtered through layers of water like stained glass in a cathedral of silence. And there, in the half-dark ahead, something moves, or perhaps it simply pulses. It's a jellyfish. Not the kind you know from beachside warnings or tide pool postcards. No, this one is larger than your body and slower than sleep. It drifts without urgency, trailing its translucent tendrils like forgotten threads of moonlight. It doesn't swim the way fish do. It doesn't dart or flee. It pulses, opens and closes, contracts and releases, not like a heart, but like a breath. You drift closer. Its body is nearly invisible, a soft bell of tissue so thin it disappears when backlit, and yet it endures. It moves with a grace that has outlasted empires. Jellyfish have no bones, no brain, no true heart, and yet some of them have lived in Earth's oceans for over 500 million years. Before the dinosaurs, before the forests, even before the trilobites etched their fossils into stone, jellyfish pulsed in the dark. The one before you now may not be ancient, but it feels timeless. It doesn't care for your calendar. It doesn't mark hours or measure age. It simply is, and you, in this moment, are the same. There is no before or after, just the now, the pulse, the presence. As you glide beside it, you begin to feel the rhythm not just of the jellyfish, but of the sea itself. A slow rise, a soft fall. The water has a heartbeat, and it is not mechanical. It is fluid, organic, eternal. You remember something strange you once read, that some jellyfish can live indefinitely, or so it seems. Turritopsis dohani, the so-called immortal jellyfish, has the ability to revert its own cells to a younger state. When injured, stressed or aging, it collapses its body, turns inward, and begins again. Not metaphorically, literally. It becomes a younger version of itself, over and over again. No one knows exactly how many times it can do this, or whether, under perfect conditions, it could do so forever. A life without end, not by conquering time, but by restarting it. Imagine that. Not immortality by strength or will, but by surrender, by softness. The jellyfish does not resist time. It dances with it, and when it must, it lets go of its age like a cloak and begins again. You wonder what would it be like if you could do that. Not merely live longer, but reset. Begin again, not just in body, but in being. Return to an earlier you, not with regret, but with rhythm, with trust. As you drift, the jellyfish brushes gently past your arm. There is no sting. Only a sensation like silk, like memory passing by without speaking. Above you, the surface ripples faintly. Sunlight moves in waves of gold, bending and scattering. You realize how strange it is that light travels so fast, and yet here, in the deep sea, it slows, it softens, it dims. Even light must change its pace sometimes. You descend a little further. Here, other jellyfish glow. Not all, but some. Bioluminescent, their bodies creating light from within. Tiny flickers in the dark, like underwater fireflies. No one is sure why all of them glow. To attract, to warn, to communicate, or simply because they can. There are mysteries in this place that will outlive you. Some jellyfish drift in patterns no scientist can fully explain. They form blooms, vast gatherings that appear suddenly, seemingly without cause, thousands upon thousands, moving together without a leader, without a signal. What tells them to gather no one knows. Perhaps it is the sea itself whispering something they can feel but we cannot. Or perhaps they don't need a reason. Perhaps drifting together is simply their way of being. You turn slowly in the water, surrounded now by a dozen of them, some small as coins, others large enough to brush your shoulders. They move as if following the rhythm of a song you cannot hear, and in their presence, your own thoughts begin to slow. You forget questions. You forget years. You remember breath and silence. You let yourself go completely now, allowing the water to hold you. There is no floor beneath you, no ceiling above, only the slow pulse of being, the deep surrender of time. Minutes pass, or perhaps hours. It's impossible to say. The jellyfish does not count them, and neither do you. Here, the future does not matter, nor does the past. Only the gentle contract and release of this moment. The ocean's echo in your lungs. The light bending through translucent skin. Eventually the bloom begins to drift away. You do not follow. You remain. Suspended in this dream of water and wonder. Heart slowed, thoughts softened, time unmeasured, and somewhere in your chest, beneath bone and blood, something pulses, not a heartbeat, not exactly, but something like it, a remembering, a returning, a stillness. You rise slowly, not upward but inward into the feeling of stillness, of being enveloped by the sea itself. As the jellyfish drift away, the water becomes quieter, as though it's holding its breath. There's a depth beyond this stillness. You drift further down now, through gentle veils of darkness where colours vanish and pressure builds. But you feel no fear. Here in this suspended world, there are no sudden movements, no alarms, no haste, just presence. In this deeper place, the sea becomes ancient. You feel it around you not as a wall, but as a memory. The molecules that press against your skin once cycled through storms and whales and rainfall 1,000 years ago. The water remembers, and within it, other creatures bloom like thought's comb jellies. Not true jellyfish, but kin in shape and motion. They shimmer as they move, refracting faint rainbows across their cilia, tiny rows of hair-like paddles that ripple in waves, propelling them gently. It's strange, but soothing, like watching a thought float through your mind and then disappear before it needs to be spoken. You float closer, watching the way their motion creates light, not light from fire or electricity, but from movement itself. This is called diffraction, where structure, not pigment, bends light into colour. It's not added, it's revealed. A metaphor, perhaps, for how your own mind sometimes glows when you move gently through it, not forcing understanding, but letting things unfold. These comb jellies have been here longer than us. Much longer. In fact, some scientists believe they might be among the very first animals to have ever existed, before bones, before brains, before thoughts became names. Their existence asks a quiet question. What is intelligence? Is it thinking? Planning solving puzzles? Or is it simply being in perfect rhythm with your environment, so much so that no change is needed? The jellyfish does not need to adapt, because the sea adapts around it. It has found the perfect pace, the perfect shape, and simply continues. In human life, we often celebrate speed, productivity, acceleration. But in the deep ocean, it is slowness and sometimes stillness that wins. Some jellyfish pulse only once every minute. Others not at all, simply catching currents with the elegance of surrender. They move without muscles, think without a mind, survive without struggle, and still they persist. What if survival isn't about force, but flexibility? What if the key to time and the softening of it lies not in conquering it, but in floating with it? You continue drifting deeper. There are jellies here with names no one remembers, some discovered only recently, others never seen again. One was named Deepsteria enigmatica, a creature so rare and ghost-like that only a few videos of it exist, drifting like a slow curtain in the abyss. Its body ripples like fabric, opening and closing, dancing in a way that makes time itself feel shy. It's hard to describe its motion, because there's nothing like it above water. It doesn't propel, it doesn't glide, it unfolds, and you find yourself doing the same, unfolding, not physically, but in mind, in softness. You think of how much of our lives is spent bracing for the future, for disappointment, for deadlines. We tighten, we prepare, we race. But here, in the company of jellyfish, you begin to wonder if relaxation isn't something we earn, but something we return to, a state that's always been there waiting, just beneath the surface of thought. A jellyfish does not prepare, it simply lives. It eats when food brushes against it, it retreats when the currents push, it follows light or dark as needed. Somewhere in its drifting, it survives, and sometimes it forgets to age. There's a mystery still unresolved. Scientists who study Turritopsis dawni, the so-called immortal jellyfish, are still trying to understand how it reverts its cells. It doesn't just heal, it rewinds. Most living things, including us, accumulate damage. Our cells age, our DNA frays. But this jellyfish has found a kind of cellular amnesia, a way to reset its biological clock when the conditions call for it. Could it do this forever? No one knows. Some say it's a rare event. Others say it may be more common, but we haven't observed it long enough Still, the idea lingers that somewhere in nature time is not a sentence, but a cycle. Not a river we are doomed to follow, but a tide we might sometimes resist. You drift, now, to the seabed, though bed seems the wrong word, for this floor is alive with soft motion. Worms twist in slow loops, anemones wave their arms in the hush. A jellyfish descends nearby and rests gently on the silt, its body undulating slowly in place, like breath during a dream. And above it all, darkness settles, not oppressive, but protective. Time is strange down here. Experiments with deep-sea sensors have shown the biological clocks. The circadian rhythms all life obeys are different under great pressure and constant dark. Creatures here live by a different metronome, one that does not tick, but echoes. In 2016, researchers discovered a jellyfish-like creature in the Mariana Trench, 10,000 meters down, that no one had ever seen before. It glowed with internal light, hovering motionless in a realm where the pressure could crush steel. How long had it been down there? How many centuries had passed? Above, unnoticed. Time on the surface and time in the deep are not the same. You realize now the deeper you go, the slower the world becomes. And maybe that's not an escape. Maybe it's a return, a remembering of the pace life once moved before it knew calendars or clocks. You close your eyes and float upward, slowly not returning to the surface, but to a place in between, a layer of water neither cold nor warm, neither dark nor lit. It's a twilight place where jellyfish love to gather. The twilight zone of the ocean. Here, creatures ascend at night to feed and descend by day to hide. The largest migration on Earth happens here not across land, but up and down in vertical waves of life. Jellyfish are part of this rhythm, and tonight, so are you. You feel it in your bones now, the slowing, not of life, but of noise, the soft unwinding of pressure, the release of seconds. Your body pulses with the same rhythm as the sea, not frantic, not idle, just here, just now, just like the jellyfish beside you. And if time truly stands still anywhere, it may not be in a faraway galaxy, or a black hole, or a quantum blur. It may be right here, in this moment, with this soft-bodied creature, teaching you that survival is not always about struggle. Sometimes it's about trust. You drift again, but this time the water melts away. There's no splash, no sudden change, only a soft, silent transition from the deep sea to something vaster. Now you float not in water, but in a sky so black it gleams. There are no stars around you at first, just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't end at your ears but seeps deep into your thoughts. The kind that silences even your breath. And then, just ahead, you see it. A shape that is not quite a shape. A shadow in space. A place where light itself forgets how to move. A black hole. It doesn't roar. It doesn't spin wildly. It simply waits. Not as a predator, but as a presence calm, immense, inevitable. You float closer. There's no pull, not yet. But you feel the distortion in your thoughts, as if time is stretching around you like warm taffy. Your limbs feel longer, your mind slower. Everything is softening. In the language of physics, this is called time dilation. The gravity of the black hole bends space and time around it. The closer you come, the more time slows not as a feeling, but as a fact. To an observer far away, you are slowing. Your movements drag. Your clock ticks with heavy hesitation. But to you inside the moment, everything feels normal. You reach the event horizon, that invisible boundary beyond which nothing, not even light, can return. But tonight, you do not fall in. You hover just at the edge, like a thought that hasn't quite become a decision. And here, time is not merely slow, it is folded. Imagine a piece of paper, space-time bent until two distant points touch. This is not science fiction. This is general relativity. Black holes do not just crush matter, they warp the fabric of reality. Here, the future is distorted, the past loses meaning, and the present lingers. You extend a hand toward the darkness. It doesn't reach back, it doesn't reject you. It simply is. There's stillness in that acceptance. Black holes are born from collapse from stars that have burned all their fuel, swollen, then folded in on themselves. They are not explosions, they are implosions. Not fire, but gravity's final whisper. Somewhere inside, science says, there is a singularity, a point where all known laws break down, but no one has ever seen it. No one knows what lies at the center of a black hole, not because we lack technology, but because information cannot escape. What enters does not return, not sound, not light, not even data. It is, in every sense, the quietest place in the universe, and perhaps the most timeless. You turn now, looking away from the hole and back toward the stars, but they seem different, blurred, red-shifted, the light stretched by gravity's grip. What once twinkled now smears into slow motion. It's not that the stars have changed. You have. Time has changed around you. And then a question floats to the surface of your thoughts. What would happen if you fell in? It's not a morbid question. Not here, not now. It's one of wonder, of science, of curiosity. According to theory, you would fall faster and faster, but to an outside observer you would never quite cross the horizon. You would freeze in place, stretched thin by gravity's strange poetry. To you, the fall would feel brief, a flash, perhaps even peaceful. But outside, you would seem paused forever. Some physicists wonder if black holes lead somewhere if the inside is not an end, but a bridge, a tunnel, a portal to another place, or time. This is called a wormhole. It's never been proven. It may never be. But the math allows for it if conditions are right. And even if it's only a metaphor, it's a powerful one that inside the most intense gravity, time does not simply stop. It twists. You linger here, just outside the edge, and you begin to notice the sound, not a sound of ears, but of space itself, a faint vibration. Scientist has detected these ripples, gravitational waves when black holes collide. They are not imagined. They are real. And they move through space not as explosions, but as whispers, as soft tremors in the very fabric of time. You're listening to the echo of two giants meeting not in anger, but in convergence, and somewhere in those waves, you feel your own heartbeat again, slowed, softened, in rhythm with something older than memory. You think of how time feels in grief, how it stalls, stretches, or in love how it flies, then freezes, or in awe how a single second can feel eternal. Perhaps time isn't one thing. Perhaps it's many things, all layered and swaying, bending with gravity, memory, and mystery. The black hole is still there, still quiet, still waiting. It is not a threat. It is not a monster. It is a mirror showing us what time does when it is left to its own gravity. You drift away now, slowly, and the farther you move, the faster time returns. Colours sharpen, Light bends back into shape. The universe resumes its flow, but something in you has changed. Not in your body, not even in your mind, but in your sense of time. You have seen it stretch, bend, pause, fold, and in doing so, you've let go just a little of the idea that time must always move forward, evenly, forever. Because in the quiet centre of everything, it sometimes stands still. The stars begin to blur again, not from motion, but from softness, as if the universe is dimming its lights to make room for something older, something quieter. You land gently on moss. Not just any moss, but ancient, velvet, soft, nestled at the base of trees so tall they vanish into the mist above. The air is wet with hush. Leaves do not rustle here. They breathe. You're in an old-growth forest, not planted, not planned, not touched by any hand in recent memory. This forest has grown in its own way, for its own reasons, since long before your name was spoken by anyone. And here, time has forgotten to hurry. You step forward, slowly, not by intention, but by instinct. The earth beneath your feet is spongy, layered with years of fallen leaves and softened needles. Nothing is wasted. Even death here turns gently into life. Each tree is a cathedral of patience. You pause beneath one whose bark spirals up like braided history, its roots stretch wide, disappearing beneath ferns and fungi. You reach out and touch it, expecting cold, but it is warm, not with heat, but with memory. You do not know its age, not exactly, but you know it is older than your great-grandparents, older than many cities, perhaps older than your language. In the silence of this forest, the years do not press down. They lift, and you feel lighter. A leaf flutters down beside you. It twirls slowly, as if deciding where to land. It does not rush, and when it settles, it becomes part of the forest's soft floor, not discarded, but accepted. You realize nothing hurries here. Not the trees, not the shadows, not even the decay. Moss grows in slow, deliberate expansion. Roots creep for decades before they twist. A tree's branch will shift just an inch across many seasons, and in that inch, entire generations of insects may live and pass. This is the deep time of the forest. You breathe in, and the scent is ancient. Earth and rain and bark. A perfume made not from flowers but from patience. The forest does not mark time in hours. It measures in rings. Not the kind you wear on fingers, the kind you find when you cut a trunk. Each one a record of a year, a silent diary, kept in wood, a dry summer, a long winter, a fire that passed nearby, decades ago. These rings do not shout, they whisper. You sit down beneath a cedar, or is it a redwood? It doesn't correct you. Names don't matter here, only presence. Birdsong flutes above, soft and irregular, not planned, but perfectly placed. And somewhere nearby, a drop of water falls from a leaf, just one. But it echoes in the stillness like a note on an empty stage. You remember something a scientist once said, that trees talk to each other, not in words, not in sound, but in scent and signal, through networks of roots and fungi beneath the soil, a web of communication called the Wood Wide Web. When one tree is wounded by storm, by drought, by beetles, it sends signals underground, and others respond, not instantly, not dramatically, but with care. Older trees will even feed younger ones, sharing sugars through root networks, especially in hard seasons. And dying trees, before they fall, have been seen to send out one last surge of nutrients, a farewell gift to the forest. It's not emotion as we know it, but it is kindness of a kind. You lie back now, looking up. The canopy above is dappled with light, filtered through layers of green. The sun is not in a rush to reach the floor. It dapples, lingers, rests. The forest has no deadlines. And you begin to wonder, how often have you rushed past places like this? Parks, trails. A single tree outside your window. Have you ever truly seen how slowly they move? If you could stretch your life out, slow your perception, you'd see the trees dance, twisting, reaching, leaning, not fixed, not stiff, just slow. And slow things, you realize, are often mistaken for still, but they're not the same. Stillness can be motion in disguise. A glacier creeps, a tree leans, a star drifts, and so you close your eyes and listen, not for sound, but for movement. A breeze carries scent of pine, of wet bark, of lichen. A squirrel leaps through shadow, not fast, just startled, and a low hum surrounds you, the collective breath of roots and soil and life unseen. Time in the forest is not linear, it is layered. The seed that fell a century ago is still growing. The stump that rotted 2 decades past is now a cradle for new shoots. You are sitting, quite literally, on the past, while being held by the future. And here, more than anywhere, time doesn't command. It participates. You touch the moss beside you. It springs gently back, not resisting, not absorbing, just adapting. That's what the forest does best. It doesn't fight change, it folds it in. You think of how we measure a moment with clocks, with phones, with countdowns. But here, a moment might be a season. A beginning might take years to bloom. A farewell might linger for centuries in the soil. The forest teaches you that longevity is not about resisting time, but about growing with it. Some trees, like the bristlecone pine, live over 5,000 years. They stand gnarled and bent, not in weakness, but in memory. Others die young, but in doing so, feed the life around them. Both are part of the same story. You begin to rise, but slowly, not from heaviness, but from reverence. Your limbs feel moss-covered, not in weight, but in wisdom. There's no rush to return, but the forest is ready to let you go. You walk once more among the trunks. A deer watches you from a distance, then turns without sound. A fern brushes your leg like a passing thought, and above, a single bird calls once not to be answered, just to be heard. Then it is quiet again, and you leave, not with a goodbye, but with a whisper of bark still on your skin, and the soft sense that somewhere deep in your chest, a ring has formed, invisible, but permanent. You step gently beyond the forest now, brushing dew from your fingertips, your thoughts softened by bark and breath. The earth beneath you flattens into a quiet field, not empty, not barren, just waiting. A soft wind moves across the plain like an idea that hasn't yet formed into words. The sky above holds the colour of wet parchment, with the sun blurred behind a gauze of time. You kneel and touch the soil. It is warm not with temperature, but with potential. And there, nestled in a hollow of dust, is a seed, small, smooth, unremarkable to the eye. You could easily miss it, or mistake it for a pebble, but you know better now. You pick it up between 2 fingers. It says nothing. It does nothing. And yet this seed might be older than your entire civilization, because some seeds do not rush to bloom. Some wait, and wait, and wait. In 2005, scientists in Israel successfully germinated a date palm seed recovered from an ancient fortress at Masada, a seed over 2,000 years old. It had been buried in dry desert soil, untouched, unwatered, unnoticed, until the moment it was given what it needed to grow, and it did. After millennia of sleep, it woke. The plant they named Methuselah now grows in the sun, living proof that time is not always the thief we believe it to be. You roll the seed gently in your palm, and you feel its patience. It does not ask to be planted. It does not long for light. It waits, not passively, but fully. Inside its shell is everything it needs to become a tree. Not just a copy of the past, but a continuation, a breath taken after centuries of silence. What other seeds lie waiting like this in Siberia? Researchers revived a Salenstenophila, a flower frozen in permafrost for over 30,000 years, and it bloomed. Its petals opened like pages of an ancient book, as if to say, "You never truly forget how to begin." You lie back in the field now, cradling the seed in your hand. The grass moves around you like water. Insects hum low lullabies. The sky ripples with distant birds. You wonder what would it feel like to wait that long, to slumber not for days or weeks, but for centuries, to hold within you all the instructions for life, and still, be still, somewhere deep in the soil around you. Other seeds wait too. Some have waited for fire. Certain species, like the jack pine or the giant sequoia, require the heat of wildfire to unlock their cones. They are not harmed by flame, they are activated by it. Without fire, they never wake. Destruction, for them, is not an end. It is an invitation. You find this comforting, that even chaos can call forth life, that what seems like the end might simply be the signal for something new to begin, a metaphor, perhaps, for your own soul. How many parts of you have remained buried, untouched, waiting for the right conditions, not out of laziness, not from fear, but from trust? The seed in your hand begins to warm not with heat, but with presence. You imagine planting it, just pressing it gently into the soil, adding water, walking away, and letting time do the rest. There is no guarantee it will grow, and yet it might. You've come to understand that growth is not always visible, that sometimes the most miraculous changes happen in darkness, in silence, beneath the surface. Like the seed, you too contain blueprints of memory, of love, of resilience. And like the seed, you may not know when it is your time to bloom, but you will. When the conditions are right, you look out now over the field and you begin to see them other seeds, rising as saplings, slowly, impossibly slowly, unfolding their first green thoughts. Some are only just beginning, others have already become, and yet all of them were dormant once. All of them slept, and now they stretch. You smile, or perhaps you don't, but the feeling is there, and you press the seed back into the ground, covering it softly with earth. You give it nothing more, because you've learned that sometimes. The best gift you can give something or someone is time. You rise, and behind you, the seed does not move, but you know now it is not still. It is preparing, and that is enough. The field fades behind you, quietly, not in disappearance, but in soft retreat, like a memory gently walking backward into shadow. Now the light dims, and the ground beneath your feet grows cool, then cooler still. Your breath brushes the air in clouds, though the cave around you offers no wind. Because yes, you are in a cave now. Not just any cave. One deep beneath the earth, untouched by sun, older than any tree you've ever known. Formed not by force, but by the insistence of water drop by drop, century by century. Here, time isn't marked by the movement of stars or seasons. It's measured in echoes. You step forward into the dark, and it welcomes you like a long-forgotten room, not with light, but with presence. The air is thick with minerals and memory. And then you hear it drip. The sound is so small, so gentle, it barely reaches your ears, but it is unmistakable. A single drop of water falling from the tip of a stone tooth above a stalactite. It lands on the matching stalagmite below, a cone rising like a question from the cave floor. Drip. Again. You wait and wait. The next one does not come quickly, because in this cave, water is not in a hurry. It does not gush or crash. It does not race in streams or roar in rivers. It falls. One drop. Sometimes every few seconds. Sometimes every few minutes. Sometimes once in a lifetime. The formations around you, these slender towers of stone, were not carved by hammers or chisel. They were sculpted by those single drops. Each drip carried minerals from the ceiling. Each fall left behind a tiny gift, a layer no thicker than a sigh. And after thousands of years, a cathedral, you reach out and touch the nearest stalagmite. Its surface is cool and damp, a little rough, like bone. Not lifeless, not at all, but slow, so slow. Its growth cannot be seen in 100 lifetimes, and still, it grows. Drip. You close your eyes and let the sound fill you. This is the sound of patience, of process, of presence. Scientists call these formations speleothems. They grow as calcium carbonate crystallizes from dripping water. In some caves, they reach 12 meters high each millimeter, earned through centuries of slow breath. Some have taken 200,000 years to form. You wonder, what has this cave seen? It has no eyes, no mind. And yet, it has felt the weight of epochs, the shift of continents, the pulse of magma far below, the migration of bats, the slow erosion of stone into song. It has heard nothing louder than your breath and nothing faster than your heart. You walk deeper, not with footsteps, but with wonder. The cave opens ahead, revealing pools so still they mirror your face more clearly than glass. One ripple would erase your reflection, and you do not disturb it. There are creatures here, 2 blind fish, pale as moon milk, drifting through the underground lakes. They do not see. They do not need to. They feel. Their world has never known light, and yet they thrive. It's strange, isn't it, that life exists here, beneath the world, where time seems not to flow but settle. You remember a story of a cave in France called Lechuguilla. Its formations are so untouched, its crystals so pristine, that even a single breath might alter them. Some of its chambers were sealed for millions of years, until humans found a way inside, and even then we moved carefully, because down here, time is delicate, not fragile, but sacred. You sit now, cross-legged on a cool slab of stone. Your fingers trace the curves of rock that may have once been liquid. Each groove a record of a forgotten drip. Drip. There it is again. And this time, you feel it in your chest, not as sound, but as rhythm. This is the heartbeat of deep earth, not the fiery roar of a volcano, not the shifting plates, but the slow, quiet erosion that builds instead of breaks. A paradox that the deepest stillness can also create the tallest spires. You tilt your head back and watch the ceiling. Tiny droplets cling to stone tips, forming with exquisite slowness. You wonder if they know when it's their time to fall, or if gravity decides for them. Somewhere in the world, in a cave in Iceland, researchers placed a microphone next to a single stalactite and recorded its drip over years, and in the spaces between those drips, they found silence rich enough to write music from, not with notes, but with absence. The cave offers you a lesson, though it doesn't speak. It shows you that time does not need to be loud to be lasting. That change does not need to be fast to be real. That presence is often invisible. You lie back on the cool floor now, your ear pressed against the earth. You hear nothing, and in that nothing you feel everything. The slow, slow shaping of stone, the timeless patience of water, the echo of your own thoughts softening like stalactites in the mind. Drip. You do not flinch now. You smile or something like it because you understand. That drop may have taken 100 years to form. And yet, it arrived exactly on time. You open your eyes and the cave is gone. Not suddenly, not violently, just dissolved. Like sugar in warm tea, your surroundings blur into softness. The stone beneath your back becomes light. The dark becomes translucent. Your body, still here, but it begins to dissolve too. Not in fear, not in pain, in awe. Because now, you're no longer the size of a person, not even the size of a cell. You're shrinking, gently, curiously. You pass by molecules, familiar ones at first. Water, carbon, calcium. Shapes you've read about but never met. Then smaller amino acids, curled like sea creatures. Then proteins, shimmering with purpose. And still smaller. DNA whirls past like a spiral staircase spun from moonlight. You see its rungs, its rhythm. You wonder what stories it holds. Which of your grandmother's songs still whisper there? Which long-forgotten fears? Which ancient joys? You descend further, atoms now. Tiny, humming spheres or clouds, depending on how you look, because atoms, like time, are not easily pinned down. They are particles, they are waves, they are both, they are neither. You are now inside one. You don't land on its surface because it doesn't have one. You don't step into its core because it resists being found, but you are there, somewhere, within its hum. And what you find here is something utterly remarkable. Stillness. Not exactly. Chaos. Not quite. But motion, yes. Endless. Delicate. Eternal motion. A soft orbiting. A shimmering pulse. Electrons dancing in probability clouds. Not in perfect loops, but in guesses like fireflies in fog. This is not clock time. This is quantum time. And here, seconds mean nothing. Some physicists describe the quantum world as timeless. Events occur not in order, but in relationships. Not first this, then that, but this because of that. Cause and effect loosen their grip. Time becomes entangled. You glide past an electron cloud, watching it flicker. Where is it? Everywhere. Nowhere. Until you ask. And when you ask, it answers. By choosing a place, measurement collapses its possibility into reality. Observation changes what is. Is that not a form of magic? Not the kind with wands and smoke, but the quiet magic of presence, of attention. You begin to realize time here is not something that flows. It is something that happens when you look, when you feel, when you are. Particles exist in superposition, many states at once until they are known. Time, it seems, might behave the same. You float toward the nucleus, now that dense, humming heart of protons and neutrons. You think it will be quiet here, but it is not. It vibrates. It hums. It pulses with force and potential. It is bound not by glue, but by the strong nuclear force, one of the four fundamental interactions of nature. Without it, atoms would fly apart. Without it, matter would dissolve. You think perhaps time is like this force, invisible, unfelt, but binding everything. You stay here a while, not minutes, because there are no minutes, only motion. You begin to notice patterns, not rigid ones, not gears or grids, but flowing arrangements, like constellations in fog. Quarks dance within protons. Gluons hold hands across impossible distances. The tiniest things in the universe never stop moving, even in absolute zero, the lowest temperature possible. Particles still possess zero-point energy, a residual, irreducible motion, because even when the universe is frozen, it cannot be still. Time doesn't stop. It flickers. It remembers how to move. You drift back now, not up, but out, expanding, restretching, regaining shape. The atoms become molecules. The molecules become cells. The cells reassemble you gently, as if they never broke apart, and they never did, because they never left. You return to yourself, seated now in a quiet meadow under soft starlight. A wind moves through the grass like a brush across silk, and now you feel it not in your thoughts, but in your bones. You are made of movement, of orbit, of rhythm, of breath that began in stars. Every part of you once spun through galaxies, was heated in cores, was cooled in clouds, was pressed into planets, was swallowed by trees, was whispered by rain, and now it is you, sitting still and yet never still, because even now your atoms dance, not for an audience, not for a purpose, but because motion is what time becomes when it is quiet. You close your eyes, but the motion continues, and you smile, because you no longer need to measure time. You're it. You drift again softly, slowly, not as a traveller chasing time, but as a presence moved by it. The meadow dissolves beneath you like mist lifting at dawn, and soon you find yourself beneath warm, translucent waves once more. But this sea is different. The water is brighter, shallower, sun-kissed. It glows with a kind of light that seems to come not just from above, but from within. Below you, a garden blooms, not of flowers, but of life, of coral, an entire city of colour shaped not by paint, but by centuries of breath and build. You descend gently, just above the reef, your body suspended in the slow, soft lift of the sea. Here, time doesn't flow like a river, it swells like a tide. It pulses like a memory. The coral glows in colours your eyes struggle to name. Pinks like whispered secrets, blues like ancient glass, yellows like laughter on a breeze. But what you're really seeing is life-layered life, built atop the skeletons of lives before. A coral reef is a monument of the past, growing forward. Each tiny coral polyp builds its limestone home, living briefly, then leaving behind a chamber that becomes the foundation for another, and another, and another. What you're seeing isn't one creature, it's millions, working slowly, fast, with no urgency. And the reef they've created, it's older than most empires. Some reefs, like Australia's Great Barrier Reef, are over 500,000 years old. rebuilt by generations of tiny mouths and silent builders, wave after wave of life that never once looked at a clock. You swim closer. Among the branches of staghorn and brain coral, clownfish dart, sea anemones sway, and parrotfish nibble at the coral with beaks that sound like laughter turned to stone. It is not a chaotic place. It is an orchestra of slowness. Every motion is purposeful, every stillness full. Time here is not measured in days or weeks, but in layers. You see it in the ridges of the coral skeletons, in the slow bleaching of an edge, in the recolonizing of a patch after a storm. Nothing is wasted, nothing is rushed. You pass a fan coral delicate, lace-like, moving with the water's breath. It is fragile. And yet, it's been here longer than you've been alive. That, too, is a kind of strength. The reef around you is alive with contradiction, busy, yet slow, vibrant, yet ancient, fragile, yet enduring. You think of how coral reproduces a kind of underwater moon ritual. Once a year, on a certain night, when the temperature and moonlight align just so, corals release tiny bundles of sperm and eggs into the water all at once. The sea becomes a galaxy of possibility. This mass spawning is not chaotic, it is cosmic, and no one knows exactly how the corals coordinate it. No one gives them the time, and yet they know. Some scientists believe it's a combination of cues, temperature, tides, lunar cycles. Others say it's still a mystery. You float there now, imagining the night when the sea becomes a sky of drifting stars, each one a seed of future reef. And you realize this reef is not just colour, it's memory, encoded not in words, but in structure, in rhythm. In the very shape of the reef itself, the fish here, some live just a year. Others, like the orange ruffy, may live over 150 years. A coral polyp might last weeks, but the reef it endures, because life, when layered with patience, becomes legacy. You drift among sea turtles, now slow, deliberate. They've travelled thousands of miles to return here, guided not by maps but by magnetism and memory. Some are over a century old. They do not hurry, and yet they always arrive. You think about how coral grows, not like a weed, but like a cathedral, layer by layer, built not by architects, but by instincts, working together, shaping silence into shelter. And when storms come, as they always do, the reef bends. It breaks in places, yes, but it recovers, slowly, steadily. Time heals what it does not erase. You swim beside a school of tiny silversides. They shimmer as one, turning in unison, reflecting the sun like a single, breathing mirror. Their lives are short, but their dance is eternal. You pause now, letting yourself float above a coral shelf. Below you, the colours flicker gently, like breath caught in sunlight. You could stay here for hours and never see it change. But give it 100 years, it would be a new world. Same place, same water, new shape, new life. And that is the secret of the reef. It doesn't hurry to change. It trusts in time. You think of your own life now, of how often you've rushed growth, demanded transformation, longed for sudden clarity. But maybe, like coral, the truest changes happen not in leaps, but in layers. You may not feel them, but they are building, even now, even here. You exhale, and the bubbles rise like thoughts you no longer need to hold. And beneath you, the coral shimmers, unconcerned with speed, content to be beautiful, eventually. The water around you begins to shimmer, not with sunlight, but with something deeper, something older. A radiance that feels like it doesn't just light the sea, but remembers it. And then gently, without noise or ripple, you rise, up, up, beyond the reef, beyond the surface, into the velvet sky of night. But this sky is not like the one above your home. It is wider, deeper, more ancient than breath. Stars bloom all around you, now not in stillness, but in quiet expansion. You're no longer bound by gravity. You float through space as if it were water, slow, infinite, soft. You pass nebulae glowing like dreams unfinished, gas and dust spiraling like galaxies not yet born, and ahead, far, far ahead, galaxies themselves, swirling, stretching, becoming. You are watching the universe bloom, not in seconds or minutes, but in epochs, in spans so vast they make centuries feel like the blink of an eyelash. You glide closer to a spiral galaxy, not crashing into it, but arriving beside it like a thought next to a memory. Its arms twist outward like dancers waking slowly from sleep. This galaxy is not new. It may be 10 billion years old. It was already spinning before your planet was dust, before Earth had oceans, before Earth had names, and yet it still grows, not in speed, but in space. You remember the theory, the Big Bang, the birth of time itself, a moment not of explosion, but of unfolding, a seed of everything expanding outward into nothing, and it's still expanding. Even now, even here, even you. Cosmic background radiation still hums across the universe, a soft echo from that first breath. Scientists have measured it 2.7 G125 degrees above absolute zero, the universe's baby blanket. You are floating in it now, not just among stars, but among time. Because time here is not a clock, it is a fabric. And that fabric is stretching. Galaxies are not just moving, they're moving away from each other, carried by the expansion of space itself. The further away a galaxy is, the faster it recedes. This is not motion through space, it's motion of space. And you, here, are still. But the universe around you, it blooms in all directions. You think of Edwin Hubble, the man who first noticed this expansion. He saw that light from distant galaxies was redshifted, pulled longer, stretched like a yawn across eons. That stretch, it is time, light, which seems so fast takes billions of years to cross the sky. When you look at a distant galaxy, you do not see it now. You see it then a ghost of itself. That spiral before you, its light left home before Earth had mammals. You're not seeing the galaxy as it is, you're seeing its memory. You float among other galaxies now, elliptical ones, round and old, their stars long settled, irregular ones chaotic and young, still finding form, and then you come upon a collision, two galaxies merging, but not with violence, with grace. Galactic collisions happen in slow motion. Stars do not crash like cars. They pass through each other like flocks of birds crossing mid-air. Gravity pulls, stretches, reshapes. Tidal tails of stars trail behind, and over billions of years, what were once two become one. You wonder, what does time feel like for a galaxy? Does it feel the tug of its arms unwinding, the migration of stars from core to edge, the birth of a star in its spiral arm? Probably not, but you feel it, because you, too, are made of stars. Every atom in your body, every particle was forged in a furnace of light, a star that lived and died and gave its pieces away. You're not just watching the universe bloom, you're blooming with it. Time is not passing you by. It is growing you, like a coral reef, like a glacier, like a drop of water forming a cave, like a star, remembering how to shine. You drift toward a star nursery now, a cloud of gas and dust where gravity is quietly folding matter into heat and fire. A new star will be born here, not tonight, not this century, but soon by cosmic standards. You hover near it. It's not a moment of drama. There's no explosion, only a slow pull, a gathering, a promise. And you think perhaps time is not a threat, not a thief, but a midwife, helping the universe become itself, slowly, tenderly, across infinite breadth. And you are part of that becoming. Your body, your thoughts, your dreams, all shaped by time's patient hand. You turn now, floating back from the nursery, past the spirals and collisions, past the whispering light of galaxies. You return to your own sun, small, modest, yellow, and beautiful. It has burned for 4.6 billion years. It will burn for billions more, and every second it shines, time continues to bloom. You settle now, just above your blue planet, spinning in silence, wrapped in ocean and cloud. You know now that spinning this orbit is not just motion. It is memory. It is rhythm. It is the universe dancing slowly, kindly, across time. And you are dancing too. You drift downward now, not through air or water, but through thought. No stars this time. No glowing galaxies or coral reefs. Just a quiet turning inward. The vastness outside folds into something softer, smaller, closer. You feel it first as a tingling hum in your fingertips, then behind your eyes, then in the space between breaths that pause where your mind hovers, neither here nor there, and then you arrive. You're inside your own brain, not metaphorically, not as an observer, as a presence riding the electrical hush of thought and time. You do not walk here, you wander. The landscape is not solid, it pulses, it folds and shifts, like ink in water, like breath beneath blankets. You float through neuron forests, long, branching trees of light. Their limbs glow in patterns, flicker, connect. You drift beside one, and it lights up like a lantern as your awareness brushes past. This is not memory. This is becoming. Each time you think, your brain reshapes itself. Connections strengthen, pathways grow, some dim, some break, some repair. Your brain, even now, is rewiring itself just because you're paying attention. This is neuroplasticity, the quiet sculpting of self, and it is never still. Even as you sleep, even now, you float deeper into the folds of your mind, into the hippocampus, that seahorse-shaped keeper of memory. It hums with layered echoes, not filed like a library, but folded like a song. You feel them, your own memories, passing like shadows through leaves, some bright, some faint, a voice, a face, the smell of rain on a window, a time you laughed so hard your ribs hurt. But these are not facts, they are fragments. Because the mind does not store the past like a camera, it reconstructs it. Every time you remember something, you don't just retrieve it, you repaint it, add colour, remove edges, change the lighting. Memory is not a vault, it's a garden, and each recollection is a hand in the soil planting, pruning, forgetting. Scientists have found that the very act of remembering changes the memory, that your brain updates your past each time you visit it, not maliciously, just gently, slowly. like a stream that carves its banks a little more with each flow. You think maybe that's what healing is, not forgetting, but retelling. You pass now through the amygdala, that almond of emotion. It glows hot and soft, joy and fear, surprise and sorrow. This is the colour in your thoughts. A smell from childhood sparks a warmth in your chest. A song reminds you of a loss, but the memory and the emotion are not separate, they dance. They inform one another. This is why time feels different in memory, why some days flash by and others stretch. Your mind does not keep time with clocks, it keeps time with meaning, and meaning is never fast. You float now toward a quieter region, the default mode network. It pulses when your mind wanders, when you're daydreaming, when you're not doing anything. This is your internal universe, your imagination, yourself, your future. When you close your eyes and picture tomorrow, this part of your brain lights up. It doesn't just remember, it imagines. And imagining is a form of time travel. Your brain is a time machine made of light, not precise, not perfect, but alive. And the best part, it pauses when it needs to. It rests. Sleep, they've found, isn't just about recovery. During sleep, your brain cleans itself. Literally, cerebrospinal fluid flows through like a tide, washing away waste. And during REM sleep, when you dream, your brain replays the day, consolidates memories, rearranges meaning. Even in unconsciousness, time is at work, but gently, tenderly. You float now into a dream forming, not yours, not yet, but someone else's. A child dreaming of flying, an elder dreaming of a face long gone, a student dreaming of a world not yet born. And within each dream time pauses, here, in this theatre of the mind. Seconds stretch or vanish. You live entire lives in a blink. You fall and fall and fall, then wake in the same bed. Dreams do not obey time. They rewrite it. As you float through this mind space, part real, part imagined, you begin to see the shape of your own thoughts. Not a line, but a spiral, returning, evolving, softening. A memory once sharp becomes round, a fear becomes a lesson, a regret becomes a story. This is the slow bloom of understanding not taught, but grown. And the older your brain becomes, the more it distills time into meaning. This is called crystallized intelligence, the wisdom that deepens with age. Not from learning more, but from holding less. Less urgency, less noise, more pattern, more quiet. You turn now, drifting outward through your mind, past the flickering neurons and gentle pulses, past the synapses glowing like stars. And as you leave, you notice something strange. The activity doesn't stop. It welcomes your absence. Because your brain continues to move, even in rest, even in silence, even in sleep. And in that movement, that soft, patient hum time is not passing you by. It is being shaped by you, with each breath, each thought, each gentle remembering. You step softly out of your mind, not in haste, not in forgetting, but like someone leaving a room full of music, carrying the last notes gently in your chest. The stars behind your eyelids flicker, then fade, and now you're walking. Not floating, not shrinking, just walking barefoot, along the soft edge of a river bank. The grass is long here, brushing your ankles like fingers from a dream. The air is thick with the scent of wet stone, wild mint, and something old, not decaying, but resting. Before you the river, It curves lazily through the valley like a ribbon dropped by time itself. It does not rush. It does not cut through the land. It caresses it. You begin to follow it. The river is clear, not in colour, but in intention. It goes where it needs to go. Slowly, steadily, without apology. Each bend in its path is a decision made over centuries, not sudden, not sharp. The water turns like someone deep in thought, and the banks wide, rounded, worn smooth tell stories. Stories of a river that has been here longer than maps, longer than roads, longer than even the language you think in. This river doesn't slice through land like a blade. It writes love letters to it. Scientists call this kind of river a meander, a stream that flows in looping curves, growing more sinuous over time. It is the opposite of straight, and yet it is never lost. You crouch beside it, dipping your fingers into the current. It's cool, alive, not just move and carrying, silt from mountains, seeds from trees, light from the sky, whispered wishes from children upstream. You stand again, walking with the water now. The path is not always easy. Sometimes it vanishes beneath ferns. Other times it leads you across stones slick with lichen. But always, it continues, and always, slowly. You begin to feel a rhythm in your legs, not the rhythm of urgency, but a following, something that knows how to wait. Because rivers do not race, they persist. You pass a willow, its branches trailing the water like thoughts too soft to speak. Beneath its shade, the river eddies circling, pausing, reflecting. Not every part of a river must flow forward at the same speed. Some parts linger, so do you. You sit beneath the willow, watching the way the water breaks around roots, nudges pebbles, flattens leaves. Every gesture is subtle, but over time, even this soft persistence carves canyons. The Grand Canyon itself was made by a river, not by storm, not by flood, by patience. The Colorado River, once small, quiet, wore-down rock older than bones, one grain of sand at a time, not out of force, out of presence. You sip that truth now like sunlight between branches that slowness is not weakness. It is endurance. You stand again, following the river into a deeper bend. Here, the water is slower still. A beaver dam holds it back, not in defiance, but in dialogue. The animals here have learned to shape time, not fight it. A heron waits in the reeds, still as a statue, waiting for movement, not impatient, just ready. You step across a fallen log, and something stirs beneath the surface. A fish, a thought, a secret. The river doesn't say. It doesn't have to, because this river doesn't speak in sentences, it speaks in curve. You continue, and you notice now how the river's path is never straight, not because it cannot be, but because it chooses not to be. The earth is not straight, the sky is not straight. Why should the river be? It curves not for efficiency, but for intimacy. Every bend is a deeper conversation with the land, a longer gaze, a slower breath. Scientists once mapped the Mississippi and found its path changes every year, not wildly, but subtly. It's always moving, always shifting, but never rushing. This is dynamic equilibrium, balance in motion. You feel that in your body now. Your own blood is a river. Your breath is a tide. Your thoughts, meanders, not chaos, just softness. You come to a place where the river once changed course, a dry channel beside the main one, now full of grass and dragonflies. It's called an oxbow. a memory of the river's former self. And isn't that beautiful that the river does not erase its past, it leaves it gently behind? It says this, too, was me, but now I am somewhere else. You pause and look back at your own life, the old versions of you not gone, just oxbows, still there, still beautiful, no longer where your water flows. You keep walking, and the sky turns pink. The river glows like a path made of whispers. You don't need to ask where it's going. You're already there. Because the truth is, the river is not trying to arrive. It is trying to move in the most honest way it can, and you are part of it now. The river curls away behind you now, its last bend disappearing softly into the horizon like a sigh that knows where it's going. You're standing in a wide, open valley, the kind where silence isn't absence, but depth, a hush that holds things, like hands. The grass here is shorter, the earth is drier, and scattered across the ground are stone, dozens, hundreds. Some sharp, some smooth, some no bigger than a blink, others the size of forgotten altars. You bend down and pick one up. It fits in your hand like it always belonged there, warmed by the sun, rough around the edges, one side darker than the other. Nothing special, and yet everything. This stone has waited a long time for this moment, longer than you can imagine. You sit now, with the stone cradled in your palm, and you realize this is not just an object. It is history condensed, matter that has endured everything: rain, wind, heat, pressure, erosion. It did not break, it simply changed. There is a word for this lithification, the process by which sediment becomes stone. Tiny grains, pressed together over ages until the space between them disappears, until they forget they were ever separate. That's what you're holding, millions of years of patience. Stone, after all, is the earth's slowest thought. You look around now, at the other rocks scattered across the plain. Some are volcanic, forged in fire, frozen mid-motion. Some are sedimentary stories written in layers, like pages pressed into silence. Others metamorphic, changed by heat and pressure, transformed not by choice but by circumstance, and yet still here, still whole. You think of your own life, how many times you've been pressed, changed, weathered, and still you are here, still whole, still holding. The stone in your hand doesn't speak, but if it did, it would say, I do not hurry, I do not break, I am what remains. Stones have no clocks. They do not age the way we do. They do not rush to become. They do not dread decay. They are always becoming. A pebble today was once a mountain, a cliff, a continent, broken down by time. Yes, but not lost. Only changed. Even the sand between your toes is stone, just one that surrendered to softness. You lie back now, the stone resting on your chest. The sky above is clear, no clouds, no movement. Just that same slow blue that stones have watched for millions of years. Somewhere, high in the mountains, a boulder is cracking not loudly, but slowly. Water has found a fault. Ice has widened it, and over the next 1,000 winters, the boulder will become pieces, then fragments, then dust, but not wasted. That dust will feed moss. That moss will hold water. That water will feed a spring, and the cycle continues. Stones do not mourn what they were. They do not cling to their shape. They endure by letting go. Geologists call it the rock cycle, a timeless journey from igneous to sedimentary, to metamorphic and back again. A cycle that spans not years, but eons. You run your thumb along the edge of your stone. It's been shaped by more than just weather. It's been carried by rivers, tumbled by glaciers, held by animals, perhaps even people long ago. Once, a child might have skipped it across a lake. Once, it may have formed the corner of a wall. Once, it was buried, forgotten, and now found, and in all that time it never asked to be more, never tried to be less, just was, and still is. You feel your breath slow now, sinking with the pace of the stone, not rising and falling but settling, resting, becoming part of the land again. You think of ancient monoliths, standing stones older than empires, Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, the Moai of Easter Island, all reminders that stone is what we choose to mark memory with, because it endures, because it does not ask to be noticed, because it outlives even silence. You close your eyes, holding the stone to your chest, and you realize maybe you, too, are allowed to be still, not idle, not empty, just present. Maybe you, too, are allowed to be a witness instead of a participant, to be unchanged for a while, to hold the weight of history not as burden, but as reminder. That time, when allowed to soften, turns even mountains into something you can carry in your hand. The stone rests now beside you, kissed by the grass and the weight of time. You rise, not with effort, but with ease, as if your body has remembered the rhythm of the earth. The sky's beginning to deepen, blue slipping into indigo, indigo folding into violet. The world is growing quiet, not asleep, but thoughtful. You begin to walk, not far, just enough to feel the air shift, and then you stop, because you've noticed something. Not the wind, not the stars, but yourself. The movement of your chest, the lift and fall, the inhale, the exhale, and more than that, the pause in between. That quiet moment between breath and breath, where everything holds, where time does not tick forward, it simply waits. You stand still, tuning into that rhythm. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. It is so soft, so subtle, and yet it holds your entire life. From your first breath to your last, this cycle is your quiet metronome. But the magic, you realize now, is not in the breaths. It's in the spaces between. That tiny pause, that hush, that barely there moment when the world forgets to move, and everything just is. You sit down in the soft field and close your eyes, and you breathe, not to control, not to change, just to listen. Each breath a wave, each pause a still lake. This is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. Your heart rate slows when you exhale, quickens when you inhale. Even your heartbeat follows the tide of your breath. The pauses, they're like moonlight on water, fleeting, beautiful, deep. In meditation, some traditions call this space kumbhaka, the breath retention, a sacred stillness, a doorway between moments. It's not about holding your breath. It's about noticing when the breath rests. You rest with it now. And in that resting, time seems to stretch, not in discomfort, in wonder. A single breath can hold 1,000 thoughts. A single pause can erase the noise of an entire day. This is the power of slowness. The lungs are not clocks. They are oceans, and you are the tide. You begin to observe your body as if from a distance, not detached, but expanded. Each rise of your chest becomes a moonrise, each exhale, a sunset, each pause, a horizon with no end. Your nervous system responds. Your heart slows. Your muscles release. The tension you didn't know you carried melts. Science has a name for this too, the parasympathetic response, the rest and digest mode, triggered by breath, deepened by attention. But tonight, names aren't important, only the experience, only the pause. You lie back again, and above you. The moon has risen. It does not shine. It glows, gently, reflecting light it does not create. Light that has travelled millions of miles. Light that passed through time to find your skin. You breathe in again and feel it. That space, that hush, that eternity between breaths. You realise now maybe time doesn't always move. Maybe, sometimes, it holds you. Maybe, in the quiet between thoughts, between words, between inhale and exhale, you're timeless. You rest in that thought, not trying to understand it, just floating in it, like moonlight in the lungs, like breath on the edge of sleep, like a moment that forgets it must end. And now, you return, not back to a room, not back to a day, but back to a feeling, a gentle hush, the kind that comes not from absence, but from fullness, like a song at rest, like stars pausing just long enough for you to notice how far they've travelled. You're no longer drifting through galaxies, no longer swimming in coral gardens or tiptoeing through brainwaves. You are simply here, breathing, resting, held. Time has taken many shapes tonight. A glacier's slow breath, a seed's ancient wait, a jellyfish's endless dance, the silent collapse of a star, the orbit of your own thoughts. You have walked beside rivers that refuse to hurry. You have cupped a pebble that once stood tall as a mountain. You have paused in the space between breaths and found it wide enough to hold the sky. And now it's quiet. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because the saying is done. You feel the weight of your body, just enough to know it's there. You feel your breath, the same breath that travelled with you to the edge of a black hole and back. You feel peace. Because in the softest corners of the universe where atoms hum and gravity forgets to pull, time does not tick. It listens. And tonight, so have you. You've listened to the world unfolding slowly. You've remembered how to be still. And in doing so, you've found that place, that hidden corner, that soft cradle where time stands still, not forever. Not for always, just for now. And now is all you need. So rest, my dear sleepy listener. Let the seconds dissolve. Let the hours uncoil. Let the calendar curl up like a cat in the sun. Because here, in this moment, time has become a whisper, and you are safe to sleep.